Okay. I'm so excited about tonight's conversation. Many of you have joined us over the weeks, over the months, over the years, really. I mean, some of you, I'm looking at some of the names and faces, and you've been riding with your brother for over a decade, 15 years. I'm looking, let me see if I see any 15, 20-year people who been rolling with me that long. But definitely some decade people, some 12, 14, 15 years people. And I'm trying to think, I almost think, is that about how long I've known you, Dr. Roberts? It's been a while. You've been gracious to me from the very beginning of our meeting. First, our initial interview with Conversations with Black Millionaires, which again, you bent the rules for me on that one, because technically, it was Conversations with Millionaires, but here I am having a conversation with a billionaire and someone who's generated billions of dollars. And I couldn't be more thankful for you doing that for me and the conversation that we had. So I appreciate you for that, Dr. Roberts. From that point forward, if you have yourself, I hear myself coming through on reverb, so can you just mute yourself? I see you just got on, Anitra, so I think you're co-host. If not, I'm gonna make you co-host, Anitra, so that you can help me with all of this tech stuff so that I don't have to keep bouncing back and forth. And you can kind of let some of the people in. But Dr. Roberts has been more than gracious, been more than a mentor, more than a friend, just the example, the tutelage, the mentoring, always having your door open for me. Again, I just can't express how grateful I am for that. And anytime I have someone who's in my network who I believe could benefit from an encounter with you, you've always opened your doors for people that I've said, hey, just tell Dr. Roberts that Brother Bedford said, and you've opened the door and you've been just as gracious to them as you have to me. So again, I just can't thank you enough for that. I'm gonna go ahead and read Dr. Roberts, not all of his bio. If I just tried to read Dr. Roberts' bio, we wouldn't have enough time to even go through this conversation that we want to have tonight. So I'll read a portion, some of the things I want to highlight because I think it's of critical importance for us. But one of the reasons I'm so excited about this call, to get back on track, was that I was watching a conversation on CNBC, and I think it's in Davos, Switzerland. And they have all of the business leaders and thought leaders who are sharing their vantage point of what they see happening in the global economy, what's happening in the national economy, what's happening with finance, what's happening with the dollar, what's happening with the wars. And there's never enough of our faces there. And to know that Dr. Roberts has had extensive experience in terms of travel and speaking on some of those forums, I thought, man, if I could just talk to Dr. Roberts with our brothers and sisters from someone who really leans into being a futurist and looking at what's happening, not now by itself, but looking how now is impacting the future and how the future is impacting now. I was just excited when you said, yes, let's do it, Dr. Roberts, so that we can help our people appreciate all of the change and the rapid change that's happening, and really being prepared to kind of deal and navigate with all of these things. So I appreciate you for that. So let me just read this brief thing, and then we'll bring Dr. Roberts on. Dr. Michael V. Roberts has successfully built several companies and traveled extensively around the world. widely acclaimed as one of America's leading and most influential businessmen. After writing 2 best-selling books, Action Has No Season, which everyone should have, and Action Has No Season 2.0, you should have both of those books. They should be primary reading. And real quick, just quick sidebar on this, because I think people were asking you, Dr. Roberts, you and I talked about this before, of why you didn't write the book earlier. And I loved your answer, was that there's a lot of people who write books about creating wealth and they haven't yet achieved that level of wealth yet, but they're writing how to do it. But you waited. You said, I would wait until I've done everything that I wanted to do, and then I would write the book, because I'm not writing a book without actual experience. And that's what Action Has No Season, both books represent. But you also came back and wrote another book, and it's completely different. And I do want to ask you about this, because you again, I'm privy to have conversations with you, and you talked about one of the reasons why you wrote a novel that integrates love, politics, mystery, international intrigue, and even murder, right? So, you have this well-known businessman who writes a novel with all of these different international things that's happening. And I love the book, and here's my copy right here. So we want to make sure that you all get your copy as well. But I want to ask you about this, because you gave such a beautiful answer on why you did this and what it does for you and the type of person that you are. Dr. Roberts graduated from St. Louis University School of Law and an attendee of the Hague Academy of International Law at the World Court, The Hague in Holland. He is a high-demand keynote motivational speaker who has been heard by thousands of people, from university commencements to not-for-profit fundraisers. And he's also spoken in the community, all of the neighborhood groups, to corporate boardrooms. He's a Kappa Alpha Phi Fraternity Inc. laureate, Wreath laureate. I'm reading from the back of the book and the letters are small. He's a major real estate developer, which I think we all know that by now. He's a major real estate developer in St. Louis and the Bahamas. And throughout Dr. Roberts' rise in business, he has owned and managed, with his brother Stephen, 12 full-power TV stations, 13 hotels, commercial and residential properties, a wireless digital telephone company, and actively participated in taking 3 companies public. I could go on and on. Like I said, there's just so much here. There's a video that I wanted to show you all, but we've been having the sound. You may see it, but the sound is not there. So I put the link in the chat, and I want you all to go and watch the profile that they did with Dr. Roberts and his brother on CNN. So I don't want you to miss a word, because again, Dr. Roberts is dropping some jewels in there that I don't want to show you the video and then you can't hear what he shared in the video. So the link is there. We'll keep, Anitra, if you can, just make sure that when new people come on, that they keep refreshing that link so that they can go see. Please go and Google Dr. Roberts and study his profile. Get both books, actually get all 3 books, but definitely for those of us who are striving to become successful entrepreneurs and business owners, get Action Has No Season 1 and 2.0. And so with that said, without further ado, it is my honor and a privilege to present to you, I can't even say introduce, because everybody should know, but if I'm introducing them to you for the first time, thank you for being here. Before the rest of you, I just want to represent to you Dr. Michael V. Roberts, and you can give him a hand clap if you want to, because I think he can see your faces.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dr. Roberts.
2024 can be the greatest year for growth within the African-American community. And I hope we take a stronger look at the diaspora and how we can potentially send our capabilities, our resources, our treasure to the motherland in Africa. I'm particularly committed because Ghana installed me as a king in 2019 during the 400-year return, and also a paramount chief in Sierra Leone. And when I look at the business future, I'll start there and then I'll come back home in a second. There was a time when if you saw something that was made in Japan, you would laugh at it. Then it became predominant. If it was made in China, you used to laugh at it, it became prominent. It's now in India. Now, why do we find industries moving in that direction, meaning from east to west? Well, it's because there's a proper workforce, affordable workforce that the industrialists and the high-tech individual companies are looking for, people who can meet their objective. I believe Africa is the next stop. With 1.5 billion people, we just have to make sure that we have the proper level of completed education. After all, Africa is the richest country on the face of the earth, and yet it's the poorest. We have the assets, we have the just about everything that it would take to build anything in the world and feed everybody in the world. And unless we focus on how to harness that potential, we will miss out. So how do we look at the future, and how do we look at becoming international? I believe that any business that we're engaged in today has to be perceived as global in nature. I gave a speech at Tuskegee, and in front of the president of Tuskegee, I made this statement. I said that public education started in 1900. And in 1900, there was a curriculum that was established to bring an educated workforce to the industrialists and the robber barons that were emerging in 1900. However, today at our HBCUs, we have exactly the same curriculum. Do we have the ability to get a degree in cybersecurity, drone technology, robotics? Do we have our kids understanding the blockchain, the future ways of doing business, and are creating jobs? And I submit to you that part of my mission with a group called the Roberts Innovation Group is to we have identified experts in these fields, and we are going after every HBCU that will listen to us and try to make a change. We would like for you to be able to go to one of our schools and get a degree, as I said, in cybersecurity, for example. 63 of our HBCUs are already involved with esports. Esports is a very interesting game that's going to be gamified for the casinos in the future. You can see, and you've probably heard of young girls at the age of 14 making $100,000 because they won the game, they won the contests. We have to get our kids more engaged in it. I think anybody who's listening and watching now probably knows a 2 or 3 year old kid who could probably take your cell phone and teach you how to operate it. So there's something that's instinct within us that allows us to become adapted to technology very quickly. But we've been miseducated. And as a result of our miseducation, we still are functioning back in the 1900s. But I submit to you that we're starting to see a change. We're going to see autonomous vehicles that will someday pick up that 5 or 6 or 7 year old, autonomous meaning driverless, no one driving, and that will drive to the school. And the only way that you'll be able to get a child out of the car is if the teacher has the code to get them out. We're going to see through 3D printing the expansion of the human life. What do I mean by that? Most humans die as a result of an organ in their body that goes bad. But with 3D printing now and the genetic coding that they're able to evaluate and establish, they're actually beginning to build already. They're building ears and hearts to some degree is under the, but I think they're also going to have the future will allow them to build even a liver. And that should make you alcoholics feel a lot better because that potentially can be replaced. So I'm seeing that the fact that over the next 10 years, and this is a question I've put to presidents of college, how will people be spending money on what, and what will be the form of currency that will be used? And are you preparing our students now to embrace what's going to happen over the next 10 years? I used to say that I'm a futurist, but frankly, the future is now. It's already here.
Mm-hmm.
And many of us need to face the fact that these changes are inevitable. And I've always said change is inevitable, and either you control the change or it will control you. So if we look at the rapid knowledge acquisitions that are taking place as a result of quantum computing, for example, I'll give you a quick example of what quantum computing means. A regular computer today could read every book in the Library of Congress, one book at a time. A quantum computer can read every book in the Library of Congress at the same time, times 10.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how robust we're going to see things change over the next 10 years. In fact, I submit to you that whatever we think is currently outstanding and unique, over the next 10 years, it'll be obsolete and it'll be dinosauric. In fact, there'll be more knowledge gained over the next 10 years as a result of quantum analytics than all the knowledge that has taken place since the human has been on the face of the earth in the next 10 years. That's how rapid things are going to change. So one day we're going to see these nanochips that'll be able to go in your body and on your mirror. And one day you'll be able to look at the mirror and say, mirror, mirror on the wall, what's wrong with me? The mirror will then diagnose you, send that diagnosis to RoboDoc, who will then evaluate it, send the evaluation to RoboPharmacist, and the RoboPharmacist will then process the necessary treatment drugs, contact the normal aerial robotic or drone to bring it to your house, in which case you would then probably have your own robot that will take it, bring it to you, and you'll hopefully take the meds and feel better. Do you think we're very far from that? We're really not. And if you start to look at, the whole concept of cryptocurrency and what that is beginning to create, and just recently with the EFTs, even the Securities and Exchange Commission has recognized to allow many of all the companies that transact stock business to begin to transact Bitcoin business. That just happened a few days ago, actually.
Yeah, the ETF exchange.
Exactly. Yeah. So what does that really mean in the future? So what is Bitcoin and how does the blockchain work? Well, the blockchain is basically, a ledger sheet that takes data on your property, on your person, and everyone is going to be a part of the blockchain. When you're born, your so-called birth certificate is going to be in the blockchain. I will be able to buy property in Singapore through a peer-to-peer process. What does that mean? It means that I can look on the blockchain, evaluate who's the actual owner, make a decision, and then transfer Bitcoin to that individual based on the pricing with an exchange and buy the property. Now, what did I just do? I eliminated title companies, lawyers, bankers, everybody in between real estate transactions. And that's how things are moving in the future. But one of the things people seem to be afraid of is, well, what does that really do to me and my job, for example? Well, I'll tell you right away that if you have a job that's repetitive in nature, within the next 5 years, half of those jobs will be gone to robotics. So you need to be aware that this change is inevitable, and we need to prepare ourselves for what will be the proper industries for us to go into in the future. At one point, folks picked cotton until the cotton gin came, and it put people out of business. But they moved to the north, and they got involved with an emerging business called the automobile business. And all of the different parts of an automobile was part of the manufacturing, because, big companies like Ford, they're an assembly line. So that meant many, many businesses stirred and created to make an automobile. Well, that's going to be true with robotics. It's going to be true with all the things I've described, autonomous vehicles. Everything still has to be built, and it has to be created. Robots are creative. Humans are creative. It's our frontal lobe that allows us to think, to worry, to love, to embrace. So there are those that think that artificial intelligence is going to be so strong someday that it'll eliminate the human per se. Well, there is the possibility that one of those nanochips could be placed in your brain, and all the data that's currently on your phone, which is infinite, imagine it being able to be of a size that could actually be implanted in the rear of your brain, and with a blink of an eye, you can see yourself skydiving or skiing or reading the Bible or the Quran, because all that data will be in you. At that point, it's called singularity. That's when a human and a robot find themselves coming together. In the future, we may see something along that line as an option. I'm here to disrupt everybody. So don't, be ready for that. Because if I don't disrupt you, you'll keep thinking the way you've always thought, and you'll not move from where you are or where you're going. But here's a disrupting thought. Now that you have this great capacity in your brain, and you can have a lens or an eye in your eye that can help you see these things that I described. Well, what's going to happen when a brain hacker comes along? And suddenly, without knowing it, you're doing some things you would normally not do. Artificial intelligence is a very, very tricky, slippery slope, in my opinion. What do I mean by that? Because data is being processed, it is also the data that bankers may use for loans. And I believe that if it's programmed the way it could very well be programmed, for example, if in the program it says that you're a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, or you're a member, or you went to Morehouse, and they're pulling these data together, and suddenly the AI says this is a Black person. And now they start to run a different risk factor that could be discriminatory as a result of this emerging thing called artificial intelligence. So we have to make sure that it's policed now, that our people are as much engaged in that as anything else. Wherever you are, whatever role you might play, you might want to find yourself, engaged in this concept of protecting our future. I believe people are going to live longer because of these components of the genomics. They call it genomics or genomics, where they'll look into your your DNA. They'll look at your cellular makeup, and they'll be able to cut out if you have a cancer gene, for example. If you are able to live longer, then there's going to be business opportunities for people to take care of you, because you still have to be entertained, you have to be fed, you have to be housed, and so these types of businesses are going to continue to grow and probably be even more significant in the future than now. So this whole nanotechnology that I'm talking about really breaks down a very interesting challenge for us, because we need to make sure that our folks are as engaged in learning about that and recognizing that whatever you're doing today can change as a result of the emerging technologies that's taking place. Now, if I really got into some opportunities in the future, and we're seeing it already, it's what I call the sharing economy. What is the sharing economy? It's when people are going to rent more. You're going to find your vehicle being used potentially like the Uber, that's sharing. Airbnb, another form of sharing economy. I think we're going to see more of that as people look to travel more. We as African Americans probably ought to take hard looks at those businesses, because that frankly is low-hanging fruit, for us. And let's kind of talk a little bit about drones just for a second.
What's
drone
that again, Dr. Roberts? What was that? Talk about what again?
Drones.
Okay.
Drones. Aerial robotics, if you will. I think that every one of our HBCUs should have a course in drone technology. Why? Because every police station in the world will eventually have a drone or drones that will be able to fly into a hostile environment and spot what's going on and be able to save the lives of policemen and, of course, the people who may be around it. Every fire department in the world is going to have a drone, because there's a large fire. There's a need to be able to spot the hot spots and not have a human climb a ladder to look for something. And instead, you send a drone to do that. Agriculture, large farms needing to see what part of their grounds are in need of some kind of treatment, whether it's a result of insects or drought. But now you can fly a drone over acres and acres of property and use the cameras to evaluate your own activities. Now, we of course understand that there's plenty of drones being used in war. That's only going to increase, because there's always going to be some kind of war, but putting boots on the ground and troops in the future is not very likely. We'll probably see more robotic type activity, and it doesn't have to look like a human robot. It can be something that rolls on the ground but is controlled by a human, or flying. Who's teaching our kids how to build and understand these? And it's really not that complicated, by the way. I mean, they're really not. It's more a matter of our academic leadership, including K through 12, to get more engaged and in touch with these emerging business opportunities. And when that happens, we're going to see quite a change. Now, that'll be true for us in this side of the globe, but we'll also be able to transfer this knowledge into countries in Africa that where there's a dearth of desire for people to be educated, trained, and for us in the diaspora to come over and literally teach and be a part of their growth. And I will tell you that, I built a wireless phone company back when nobody else was even involved with digital phones. Back
Yeah,
then, it was still the analog phone. Remember the snap, crackle, drop phones,
yeah,
where the coolest person in the theater had a phone in a briefcase?
yeah,
Well, when I was building my TV stations or operating them, the FCC was instructing us to change from an analog signal to a digital signal. And at that point, they were beginning to create these licenses all over the United States and U.S. protectorates to build digital phones.
yeah.
So
Dr. Roberts, let's deal with that real quick because I was going to mention that. I was going to ask you that question because I know we're listening to you and we're hearing about a lot of the possibilities, a lot of the things that you're seeing from your study and your experience. But I did want to go back and highlight that as I studied your career has literally been being ahead of the game. And so, as you just mentioned, me studying, and this is an action, he talks about this deal, and action has no season. But I want to ask you to kind of help us. You've been thinking like this for a while, even with Bitcoin. You and I talked about Bitcoin. You were talking, and not just buying Bitcoin, you were talking about the blockchain technology and mining Bitcoin
yeah,
almost 15 years ago. You and I were having that conversation. So you've been kind of on the cutting edge of all of these different things. First, I just want to ask you to kind of frame up that deal that you did with the Sprint Towers, but then also how can I ask this? What is giving you the mindset to think about these cutting edge industries the way that you do, and then take action to be in a position to take advantage of it? I mean, you're a very successful entrepreneur and businessman, but it's because you've taken advantage of these situations before they happen. So can
yes.
you kind of go into that?
Let me start by saying it philosophically first. The question I would pose is, what's more important, to have the money you need or the skill set?
Hmm.
Because you can lose the money, but if you have a skill set, you can keep on going and make something happen.
See, skill set. A lot of people saying skill set in the chat. Go ahead, Dr. Roberts.
Right, the skill set. And then the other thing is you have to eliminate the fear of failure. Omai and others have heard me say this before. If we break those two words down very quickly, fear is just a mental construct. It's not of nature. It's not grass growing. It's not the snow falling. When you were born, you had no fear. You were born perfect, but you've allowed it to get into your psyche or your mind. So hopefully you can work toward eliminating that. Second word, failure. I submit to you, there's no such thing as failure. You should never apply that word as it relates to you. Now, what do I mean by that? There are times when you're in a business or even a marriage or a relationship where it didn't quite work out. The question is, was that a failure, or did you learn from it? Was it a lesson to be learned? And if that's the case, then it really wasn't a failure. It was just a lesson. And every day when you wake up, get ready to write this down, everybody. Every day when you wake up, you're given 86,400 seconds. That's 24 hours. And it's an existential concept, but it means you have to live every moment to its fullest extent. You cannot let time pass without pursuing your ideas, your dreams. Now, everybody here has a dream, but what's the first thing you have to do when you have a dream? You got to wake up. You got to sit up, and then you got to stand up, and then you got to prosecute your dream. Now, in our community, too frequently, when we hear folks saying, "Well, we're going to go into business," there's always somebody in the family saying, "Well, you know what happened to brother Tyrone, Uncle Tyrone? He tried to go into business, and you know what happened." Well, when you wake up from your dream and you sit up and you stand up, frankly, Brother Bedford, we have to tell our own friends and family to just shut up and get out of our way, because you have to be the person that's going to initiate your dream. And it's from that you will create your ultimate destiny. You create destiny. It doesn't just come. You have to build it and you have to create it. And then you have to go after it. Now, as it related to your first question, yes, the opportunity came in an auction process with the Federal Communications Commission. They were issuing 6 licenses per footprint throughout the entire United States. It's an auction process. I decided to try to get it in Missouri because I had to build a TV station there, and I figured I could use my TV station to market and so on and so forth. It became quite competitive. Ultimately, I won half the state, and then I had to go and raise money to build it. I needed over $100 million. And when I would go to New York and ask these venture capital guys about loaning it, they would laugh so hard I'd have to pick them up, put them back in their chairs, because nobody understood and recognized digital. And who is this black guy coming from St. Louis talking about that? Ultimately, I ended up cutting a deal with Sprint to be an affiliate of Sprint. And as a result of that, 2 things happened. One, my buying power reduced down to 54 million. And 2, I was able to double my footprint from what I had as an auction that took me through all of Missouri, Southern Illinois, a little Arkansas, and some Kansas. And as a result, here's the point for people to note. The question became, when I asked other affiliates, well, how are you getting these things financed? And they said, vendor financing. I said, vendor financing? I've never heard of that before. Well, that's basically when Lucent was competing against Nortel and Motorola to be able to build each tower site for each tower site for the communications component. Mm-hmm. And that equipment, once it's there, over the next whatever number of years, it will be required to be repaired, and you have to use their equipment. So I ended up convincing, to make a long story short, I ended up convincing Lucent to loan me the money. Nortel was going to loan me 50% of it. Lucent, who I said, hey, you want the backyard of Sprint, because they're in Kansas City. And they said, sure. I said, well, I need $53 million. And they said, you got it. They said, you got it. I said, are you serious? I almost dropped the phone. But then once I started building, we realized some of the other affiliates around the country that eventually Sprint will probably get sold, and whoever bought them would roll us up. So we decided to go public. 3 of us went public as a result of that. And that took care of the debt. And it according to Forbes, it shifted close to 400 million to my brother and I, which we in turn, placed it in our company, in our stock. And that was great until the stock started to drop, but it's okay. We still did okay. Nevertheless, that story is in my book, along with many other stories. But one of the things that I learned when I went public was, and the same thing was true when I was selling off the TV stations to raise money, was that the person buying, you have to make sure you know what they want. And in the case of TV stations and even the wireless home company, all they wanted was the frequency. Well, I'm a builder. I've owned 3 city blocks in downtown St. Louis, and I built a high rise. So I built my own towers and I built my own offices. So I would sell them the spectrum and keep the hard stuff like the towers, the real estate. And a few years later, American Tower comes along, a big publicly held company, and says, the only way we can grow is about one tower, one at a time. And they realized that we were I think the largest non-public tower company in America, over 200 towers. Well, that sold for about $90 million. And, it's all knowing, everybody, what that buyer is really looking to purchase. And you just don't have to give them everything. You give them whatever fits their bill, so to speak. But that's one of many, many, many. And then we talk about my new radio station.
No, I was going to get to that because I know you was talking about the future and the different technologies, but you just bought another radio station in St. Louis. So what's the thinking behind that, going back to buying that type of station?
Well, it's what I call a metro station. It's not very expensive to get in. It was a license that had not been built. So I bought the license and I built the station. And what I decided to do was to only put on the air. And by the way, everybody can write this down. You can get it on your phone. You can get it. You can Google it and hear it. It's Foxy1069.com. FOXY 1069.com. Now, when you turn it on, you'll never want to turn it off, because we had one critic within the first month and a half who said, "I have finally found a station I cannot turn off." But here's the motto that you won't see too often at all, right? Is to play only music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Only play hits. So every song that you hear is a song that we relate to. And somebody could say, that's my jam. And once or twice an hour, we'll play a little gospel. And we'll also break the rules and play some blues. And so we're catching on now. So you have the terrestrial, that's over the air.
Right.
But then in today's world, we also can make it digital and streaming. So therefore, if I'm in the Bahamas or my friends in Africa or London or anywhere, they can actually hear it. They can hear it. And as a result, because of our lower cost to get it in, and I built it inside of one of my strips shopping centers, so I don't have any rent to speak of. Not initially. I mean, I will charge my company myself at some point. But I took nothing but experienced Black disc jockeys. It's 100% Black owned and managed radio station. And these are folks who were all fired by somebody white at one time, even though they were doing a good job. But what happened was, as these bigger companies took over a radio station in a given city, they would program it out of a place like New York or Chicago, and it would be the same 200 or 300 songs, whereas we have 4,000 songs to draw from. So people love it. We have people who are known by the community. They listen to their friends on the radio, and we localize it. So, we could talk about, hey, what's going on up on Kings Highway Natural Bridge, or Martin Luther King and Page, and you may hear conversations about, bringing the local back into the homes and the cars of our people. And right. It is catching on like wildfire. For me, it's I sold my last hotel in Detroit last year, and for me, it's a nice little relaxing type business that I can sit back, employ about 30 Black folks, and let them go to work, and it works out just fine.
It's nice. So we got the link in the chat. Make sure you all go ahead and download the app and tune in. And I'm going to be following, because I've already asked you about, I'm watching this business model, and you kind of just let it out on, we're watching a lot of the national media beginning to go back to the local DJs. At least that's what I'm hearing in a lot of different places. So I'm interested to see how that business model begins to shape up for you. Now, for the rest of you, I know you all are listening, and I'm gonna get out of your way, because I know you have some questions for Dr. Roberts, but I do just want to wrap up a couple things that you had started on, Dr. Roberts, and then I'm gonna get out of the way, because I know I've already seen a few people in the chat when you were talking about the drones, AI. I mean, you hit some nerves, or some people are already in those areas. So what we'll do, I'll ask you to raise your hand so that you can kind of get in the queue for your questions, because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But I do want you to go back to the initiative that you were talking about, Dr. Ross. But before we do that, let me just ask just two broad questions. You kind of touched on this, but if you were to give your thoughts, if you were in Davos, Switzerland, again, I was upset that I didn't see you there when they were talking to Jamie Dimon and all of these others, but they were asking them their views of what's happening in the world and how that's impacting America. So I want to ask you that question with what you're seeing in the Middle East, Russia, China, Taiwan. What is your thoughts and how that would impact the American economy moving forward? And in particular, how we should be approaching that?
Well, I think it can be summarized in two words: renewable energy. Those countries sometimes think that they have a hold on us in providing certain energy to our country. And as a result of that, or to other countries. But there are so many types of renewable energy concepts that we need to embrace. You know, we talk about solar, of course, and there's trash to energy concepts, and there's building smart homes that can house our people. Even the tiny homes, I think, are very interesting because we're working on doing that. I'm on the board of directors of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, in Atlanta, with Pastor Jamal Bryant, and we're going to take about 34 acres and build some small homes that we call tiny homes that'll be just perfect for a single or a small couple looking to own their own properties. And if we do that, I want us to use geothermal heating and cooling. I want us to use bamboo products and hemp products to build things like our floor, renewable products for the carpet. We can build our cabinets. We can make it. We can make it a greenhouse, a green concept, not greenhouse like plants, but a house that has renewable energy capability. So
Now,
I think I'm just saying, to get off the grid, that would put us in a position of vulnerability with these other countries you just named. You know, the one thing that that will always protect us is our ability to protect our energy source.
and I was just getting ready to ask, because you mentioned the industries that we can go in. Do you know of any, or are you going to start companies that provide those renewable energy sources or materials that you're speaking of that you're going to be using to build these houses?
Yeah, I've had a number of Black folks who have said to me in Alabama and other places that they have hundreds of acres of land that they would like to grow hemp on, rather. And those are products that are used in manufacturing. You know, we're finding more people looking at a plant-based diet, for example. So we have farms in the South that are Black owned that we should embrace and try to help them see their way through the challenges of big companies like Cargill and others that come and buy hundreds of millions of acres of land. So we have to hold on to what we have and do the most we can with it. But literally everything that I described, there are parts to everything that I describe, parts. You know, whether it's, you know, a solar panel, where there's just a frame that goes around the panel, whether it's the transporting component of it. There's even some new products that we looked at, Dr. Jake Savage and I, that actually has where you can put on your windows of your homes the equivalent of a solar panel through a paint. And it's a product that takes the sun that's hitting your windows in your house and converting it into energy.
And it's a paint?
Yeah, it's being developed as a paint that has a metallic capability that can connect and then tie off into a battery, which then would be charged. And then, of course, from that charging, you can run your house. You know, there's so many new emerging opportunities. In fact, I saw that once on a vehicle. My guess is I was with one chap. We were in Detroit, and yeah, he was describing how we can take the electric vehicle and make it perpetual. In other words, we never have to charge it. Well, what do I mean? When a wheel turns, it creates a certain inertia.
Mhm.
If that inertia can be converted into a battery renewal, then every time you're driving your vehicle or riding your bike, even if you need a battery on your bike, that the capability of that movement alone generates your vehicle, so you never have to charge it. It's always self-charging.
This is amazing. You've just given me 20 more questions, and I'm just going to log for another time with you. I got 20 more questions. So as I said, I want to get out of everyone's way. So what I want to do is the last question I want to ask you is because you mentioned it at the beginning, the initiative that you have with the colleges. I kind of want you to talk about that, and then how can we become a part of it or even support that? Because I think that educational component, without that, we can't really guide our children to do all of the things that you're talking about right now. So can you talk about that initiative and how we can play a part?
Yes, I think that everyone here has someone who's connected with an HBCU, and we need to begin to challenge them with their academic, with the types of courses study that those schools are engaged in. I really want people just to take it upon themselves to even look to elementary schools. Look, just do your own research. Go on YouTube, look at futurists. I mean, I talk about it too, but look, just kind of listen and learn and try to get a feel for what's going on out here. I mean, it's so fast moving with a huge amount of opportunities that's existing out here. I mean, I'm a miner of Bitcoin, for example. I started it. I have the machines. I bought some more, and I looked up one day, and after buying a few machines for maybe 4 or 5,000, you do have electrical bills, but the darn thing was at $60,000 already, and it was like, huh? I mean, I hadn't really looked at it, to be honest with you. So I went out and bought some more machines. Why? Because Bitcoin has jumped up into the $40,000 range, and just
That's funny.
3 months ago it was at 18 or 19.
Right.
I took, for example, my Cash App money that I had picked up from selling books to people, Cash App, and I bought a half a coin, for about $7,000 by using my Cash App, which anybody could go to your Cash App and you could buy stock, you could buy Bitcoin. And next thing I knew, I guess spent about $7,000 or $8,000. I looked at it the other day. It was a half a coin, so it's half of the 40. So it was over about $23,000. They're just sitting there. I'm saying, this is crazy. But I guess the point that I want to raise is wealthy people do what they can to not look wealthy. Poor people do what they can to look wealthy. So what we have to get is that mindset shift and recognize that we have all these skill sets that we can start applying if we just let them come out and just start researching and studying and understanding what's going on. I mean, this group the folks that I'm talking to tonight are all professionals. You're all business folks. You're probably quite successful, and I don't know that I've been able to provide you with that much additional information, but I will say that back in the day, and I hope we're not closing out at this point. Are we closing out?
We got some time.
Okay, well, I'll save that for the end.
Yeah.
So I tried to address your point as best as I could.
Great. Now I'm definitely going to give you some time to kind of close us out with what you were getting ready to say. This is great, Dr. Roberts. This is great. Again, like I said, you sparked 20 more questions for myself. So I'm going to save my questions, and I'm going to see if I can get Mr. Roberts back on for a part 2 at another time, because now I want to make sure that your questions are answered. Having an opportunity to have this interaction with Dr. Roberts and people like Dr. Roberts is one of the things that I love to hang my hat on, I pride myself on, is if I can develop a relationship and share that relationship with those who, want to hear anything that I have to say, I'm more than honored to do that. And so with that said, Cassandra, I know you have a question. So you want to come on camera and ask your question, or you're just going to ask it via audio?
I'm going to ask you via audio. I'm recovering from a cold, so I'm not really looking my best.
Okay.
So thank you, Brother Bedford, for this time. Thank you, Dr. Roberts, for your time. Right quickly, I'm in the space of tech. I have a workforce initiative that I have, and wanted to, it's an IT workforce initiative, and I wanted to ask about training and things of that nature as it relates to IT. Looking to do some virtual training, especially to for our people, and so I'm looking to get some insight from you into how I can introduce tech to our people using AR, VR, and XR, and how to market my services to them, especially since sometimes the services are a little bit on the expensive side. So I'm trying to make it more affordable for our people, but I'm not really sure how to market it. So could you give some insight into that, please? And thank you.
Well, I had a group in Detroit who came up and had a meeting in my in one of my rooms, and that was one of the questions that they had. They were trying to figure out how to get things going and funded and so on and so forth. And I waited to the end, and then I asked a representative from the mayor's office, because as I used to be a city councilman and alderman in St. Louis, so I can speak the political language, so to speak. And I asked the question, you've got all of this Build Back America money. What do you have left? And they said probably about a couple of 100,000. And so I looked around the room and I said, well, there's your money, folks. Now the question becomes, how are you going to spend it to get to what you're trying to get to, Cassandra? And that is, I said, look, if there's one underutilized property that exists in all of our cities, it's our churches during the week. And if we could get the local government to fund a tech hub in some of our churches to allow for people like yourself and others to be paid to come in and teach classes, and in turn also bring the corporate tech people to come and speak to the students and to even the continuing education level, so that there's an exposure and an appreciation for everything you described. I mean, virtual reality, the metaverse. I just think that it won't be long before we'll be able to see and talk to Dr. Martin Luther King, as if he's right there. AI will simulate his voice, and we'll be able to have an image that will come up, and it'll look like he's right there and alive.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be true for several of our deceased leaders and opinion makers, as well as those who are around today, just to get them in that situation. So if we ever have a museum, well, we can actually have holograms of people, and you actually can speak to them, and they can speak back through AI. I think that's going to be pretty dynamic. I mean, virtually, it's already being done with Sophia, the robot who you can ask any question and she's going to answer it, and she could actually answer it in a different language. So who's building all that? We need to be building all of that.
Yeah.
All that whole concept needs to be built, and then it's going to be put all over the world ultimately. So I just constantly bring us back to think globally on whatever we're doing. So if we're teaching at in these churches and we have our hubs, we want to make sure that our kids and the young adults are recognizing that everything we're doing is going to give them a global reach. And this is, I think, sort of critical to our future.
So Dr. Roberts, let me kind of to see if this helps Cassandra. So, because I've heard a lot of people ask questions, they come and ask questions about things like that, you know, charging. And I think you're pointing to when you're creating something like what she's doing, the business model is to go to the check writers, right? So to those who can afford to fund that program, and it's not directly receiving the funds from the students or whoever she's trying to teach this technology to, she should be focusing on going to the check writers who could fund these trainings and programs that she wants to do. Is that, am I hearing you correct when you mentioned that, Dr. Roberts?
Of course, but here is a more, let me put a little more meat on the skeleton. Let's take a school like Morris Brown, who just got its accreditation, okay? And what is it going to do? Is it going to have the same curriculum as in the past? That the same curriculum that, as I mentioned earlier on, was started in 1900? Or is it going to come up with some creative? I suggested that what they might want to consider is creating the only HBCU that's viewed as a new technology school. And if they do that right, I think that Microsoft and most of the tech companies will be backing up Brinks trucks and dropping money. Why? Because they all need employees to be able to handle their emerging business needs. And so what needs to happen is there needs to be a pathway for our kids to be able to do it. So, Cassandra, I think my point to you is, you know, if you develop this hub concept and then you go after, you know, the big tech companies to sponsor it, make it a beta test, if you will. I don't know what city you're in, but make it a beta test that you may be surprised because they are looking for future employees and people who can think to advance their companies.
Does that make it, Cassandra? Because I see that you responded, and I thought that's where you were going, because you said you have your own curriculum and you're looking to training our children and those in college, right? And so,
right. I have my, just right quickly, I do see other people's hands. I don't want to take up too much time.
no, you're fine. We're okay.
I wanted, right now, I have an IT workforce initiative. I have a nonprofit organization, and I have a for-profit. And so I'm using the nonprofit to get grants and stuff like that. But what I'm also finding, I've been in tech over 20 years. And so what I'm finding is that college students, it's when we're training college students, it's a bit late, because when you get out of college, they already want you to have 2-3 years experience. I'm looking to go younger, so that these young people are already learning and they already have, you know, a certain amount of experience learning before they even get out of high school. So when they get out of high school, bam, they're ready to hit the ground running. So, but what I'm trying to do is trying to get my curriculum and all that other stuff in the hands of people who really can use it, because I've been approached by people to have it in, you know, private schools and everything. I went to private schools, so I know, you know what I'm saying? I know what a program like mine will do. But I do want to get it into the hands of more of our people, because I see that we're really behind the 8 ball. And the only thing we really know how to do is use our phones. And most people don't even know how to do that. So we really do need help. And I'm trying to help, but I can't do it to the point where I'm not, my time's not being compensated for.
Yeah, I think I heard you, and I'm hoping I heard you, and I started to hear the frustration too. Is, trust me, I used to hear a while ago, if you want to help Black people, you pack a lunch. It's not the easiest thing to do, right? It's a work. That's what, if you listen to some of our language, you'll hear us talk about being engaged in this work. And so I heard you, and I'm hoping that you kind of heard what Dr. Roberts was saying, is that there's consideration in terms of those who write the checks, he mentioned the corporations. I know you want to go direct to us, but as you probably are running into, the appreciation, Mr. Roberts used that language earlier, appreciating what you do, that's something that has to be, as we've already said, taught to us from kindergarten, right? From kindergarten, preschool, this type of education needs to be in the schools. However, it's not there yet. So for your sake, though, how do you begin to grow your business and get your curriculum in front of these students, in spite of the fact that they are not ready, or they don't have the funds, or the parents don't have the funds? And I think that's where Mr. Roberts was saying, think bigger in terms of those who could help you or position you to provide your training in front of them, and not direct to consumer, if that makes sense. That makes sense?
Yes, sir. I got it, and I wrote everything down. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Let me just point out, so if your program is K through 12, and you can beef it up to find a sponsor, then you can take that to the Board of Education of your city or one of the other cities, convince the chairman of the board and the superintendent of schools, and they'll probably accept it, especially if you can come with a sponsor, and you may need them to get your sponsor, but once you do put the work in, I think you're not going to be able to save everybody, in the whole city, but if we can just get a few of our kids on the right track, that's a start.
Dr. Roberts, when you say a sponsor, are you speaking of like maybe one of the technology companies or
Yes.
something like that? Yeah. So that's think about that, Cassandra. I know it's kind of different thinking, but I've learned that from you, Dr. Roberts. And you mentioned this earlier. By being in politics, you're able to see how the deals are done, and the way, who writes the checks, who has the funding and needs to fund things. And so there are some companies, Cassandra, that I believe that Dr. Roberts is saying, that literally have money waiting to fund. And I think you used the term, Mr. Roberts, you said that they're looking for employees, but they know that their employees have to be trained up in these technologies. So if they could fund you to help train these students, these children, so that they can be prepared for this, they may be able to write you, and believe me, they will write you a much bigger check than probably some of the direct courses that we're trying to sell. Because I know you're probably thinking, man, if I can put this thing on Kajabi or something like that, I know that's how we're all thinking in the internet space. But I think Mr. Roberts is asking us to kind of look, 2 to 3 steps beyond that, so that you won't be struggling to teach this curriculum. You'll have enough money to not only teach it, but now leverage that to other opportunities, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure you get this recording, Cassandra, and reach out if you want to talk about it a little bit more.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
You're welcome. Joyce, let's keep moving. I do see you, Marco. I see Coach. Is that Garland? Okay, and Linda. So we'll be coming to you all in just a second. I'm looking at the clock. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So Joyce, go ahead with your question.
Good evening again. Thank you, Brother Bedford. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Thank you for information, great information. You mentioned earlier about basically getting in at the ground level, and how you've invested in things many years ago. And I see some questions that look like they're similar in the chat. Is there a way, or is there a type of mutual fund for persons of color who aren't at the level to invest lots of money, but want to get in on some of these investments? You've mentioned a lot of things that make a lot of sense. This whole paint, being in Bermuda and having paint that can oh my gosh,
that was hot. Wasn't it, Joyce? That was hot. I like that.
I was like, oh my goodness. But things that, as we, our minds may have thought fleeting moments of these things, but these are real. Like, if you can imagine it, it's going to happen. But is there a way that we can get in on these investments, or how would we find out about research? Or are you looking to set up a mutual fund or a venture capital fund where persons can get involved to invest in some of these companies and Blacks who are getting into the renewable energy space, or just how can persons find out more, or persons that may be at some of our levels get involved to invest? Because a lot of good things come to you, thank goodness, and you're sharing it with us. And so it would be great to hear about more of these things, and being a person of the church as well, how our churches could possibly have our congregations invest so that our churches can benefit.
There's a brother by the name of Robert Greene, who is the president of the National Black Venture Capital Fund. And he basically interacts with all the venture capital companies that are out here. I don't have the complete name, but you could probably research him, Robert Greene. He's been in many deals, and he knows all the venture capital firms that are out here. And there's a difference between a venture capital fund and a joint venture fund. So, you have to kind of determine what you're really trying to accomplish. If you're looking at just making your own investments, then, I would think you want to move carefully and sort of work through some people that you know and can trust. But in terms of finding venture money, go to the internet. They're all over the place. But this brother is in charge. I mean, he runs a national company that interacts with all venture capital people. Good guy, a very nice fellow.
Thank you for that. If I can just follow up, because I was kind of, I think, asking dual. So I was more so as well asking about investments. If a group of us business owners wanted to individually invest in some of these new technologies that we may have never heard of before. I mean, I met with my investment guy today, and he's not even in these kind of spaces with new technologies and energy, but maybe there are certain people, certain investment persons that will lead in that direction. But yeah, that was, I guess, the question. How can persons get involved in these kind of investment opportunities related to the new trends?
Well, like I said, you probably should attend more conferences that's involved with creating new gadgets, for example. And I mean, these conventions are all over the place, and you see very few people that look like us. I would suggest you research and attend those and just immerse yourself in these wonderful new gadgets that's coming out, because one of them, or many of them, may hit it and hit large before it's over.
Is that helpful, Joyce?
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate you and your time.
And I do see a couple of, Ron, you had, I don't know, did that help you, Ron, with that? Because Ron had asked a similar question. He was saying investment opportunities to research related to these trends, but he said, other than the obvious ones like Meta, Tesla, and things like that. Ron, you can type in there and see if that was satisfactory for you. Let me see. Since we got people asking the same question, let me make sure that covered. Ron said that, yeah, very few. Okay. So if someone typed in there Robert Greene, I don't know if there's a link or something for him, but just research him to get more information. Thanks for that. That's right. Okay, Linda, your question.
Hi,
Hi, Linda.
Linda Morgan Sam here in California. Two questions. This will probably help you answer the question that Miss Joyce asked. You have a group of us that have called a certain word starts with an A.
Actionaires.
Absolutely. So my question is, why can't you get how many of us on here? Let me see. It's 50 of us on here. How about me and Joyce is 2?
It don't work like that.
8 more and utilize actionaires that you are trademarked and coined for. That's my question. That ain't my question, ain't to you, Brother Bedford.
I know, but I'm trying. I don't think it works. Like, I don't think Mr. Roberts can answer a question. That's if I think you're asking what I think.
I'm just saying, in that vein, he has an actionnaire. Do you have an actionnaires group? First, I probably didn't jump fast forward. Do you
Yeah.
yourself have an actionnaires group?
Well, we call it the Roberts Innovation Group, and it's the same. Now,
Okay.
we meet every Thursday morning at 8:30. We Zoom every Thursday morning, and all of them are experts in their relative fields of technology, and we're constantly looking and writing proposals to get money into the HBCUs, and then we'll bring our curriculum in to as part of that funding process. Yes.
Absolutely. So do you foresee creating such a actionnaires group for Brother Bedford's mob at some point?
Well, let me just say this, Brother Reverend.
Go ahead.
Things like that have to grow organically. You
Right.
follow me? I mean, I launch it, and then people have to pick up and take it and work with it, and because there's so many things that I'm doing. I'm not that guy at this point to try to set a full organization. But we have the copyright, and the name is officially patented, so it's protected. Action has no cities, and actionaire are both protected words.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, just for clarity, because I don't want it, because were you asking is Mr. Roberts having some type of investment fund where people can invest with him? That's why I wanted to make sure that
That was my other question. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to clear all that up,
coin?
because that's not,
Yeah.
you can answer that, Mike, because I just want to be very direct. You don't have a fund that people can invest in or looking to invest or anything like that.
Oh, I don't.
That's what I wanted to make sure was clear. I just want to make sure it was clear, because we want to make sure no gray areas, none of that type of stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Mr. Roberts, are you still promoting the coin? I heard you talking about Bitcoin. I got some of that staked away too, but
I know what you're saying, and thank you for reminding. What Linda's saying is that when the whole kind of discussion of Bitcoin and all the various ones were starting, I said maybe we need to have an action coin. But as time rolled on, Linda, there were so many people there was so much corruption in that I decided I would back away and just focus on the Bitcoin side of things and not on the action coin.
okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Good information to know.
Good to see you.
That good, Linda? You done?
Oh, yes.
Thank you for your questions.
And when you coming to California, sir, I'll call you after this.
I need you to send some sunshine our way over here, man.
All right, good. We got 3 more questions. You good for 3 more questions, Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Coach Garland will go to you, and then Marco, and then Lynette. I see that you have your hand up.
Hi, Brother Bedford,
Linda.
and thank you, Dr. Roberts. I appreciate just all the really great information. I'm in North Carolina, and I actually own a real estate firm. And one thing that I love is that you talked about thinking globally. And so I wanted to add, and I also hear you not saying it, but I hear you saying it, the word leverage. Because that's similar to what Brother Bedford said about the young lady that was interested in technology, is not thinking about how we can reach people individually, but how can we go to the person that has the money to pay for the whole thing. And so because you own so many or have owned so many rental properties and hotels, where do you see the real estate space going with interest rates where they are now? It's requiring, now that I think there was an article on CNN that said now the average person needs $120,000 to purchase a home as a couple just to qualify for a basic home. So where do you see the real estate space going from a futuristic perspective? I'd love your opinion on that.
I spoke on it earlier when I was talking about the tiny homes or the small homes, that they can be built affordably and built comfortably. And that $125,000, $130,000 is the strike price for some of these properties. Also, I've noticed of late, I've taken some downtown office buildings and converted them into loft apartments, which I still own. And there are several, because of COVID, and people staying at home, a lot of offices are empty. And I think there's going to be a interest rate reduction because it's a political year. And the cities are trying to find initiatives, tax breaks and what have you, because some of these properties are going belly up. But if you get the right one, you can use historic tax credits, new market credits to some degree. And then you can take some of these commercial buildings and convert them into loft apartments. Where in North Carolina are you?
That's a great idea. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, so Fort Liberty, it used to be Fort Bragg. We're about
I know
45 minutes from Raleigh. Mm-hmm.
I've been to Fort. I've been there, and really, you could use a nice hotel for the military base there. Actually,
I love that idea. Okay.
yeah, a small one, but really good quality for the people visiting their loved ones over at Fort Bragg.
So historic tax credits, and what was the other thing you named?
Well, there's new market tax credits.
New market.
There's brownfield credits if the property needs remediation. You can get those types of credits as well, and then you sell the credits to help fund your project.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to look into that.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Was that helpful?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Piggyback off of that real quick, Mr. Roberts, 'cause I know you talked about the commercial space, and they're definitely under a lot of pressure with the downtown office building. Excellent idea to convert them to lofts. What is your because I know we probably have people who are just in the general residential real estate space. I know you mentioned the small homes. What do you see in terms of just residential space for 2024 with the interest rates and things like that? Because I know we have a lot of realtors and brokers who probably get on and listen to this.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to. I mean, the spring will offer a time for people to buy because the winter will have people who are trying to sell. They're going to be reducing their prices in order to get them off the books and move on. So I would say sometimes in late March, April, May, there may be some interesting opportunities to start popping up.
Are you thinking about? Do you see a crash?
I don't see a crash. I mean, the crash that I may see are some of these bigger developments. I mean, huge multi-million-dollar developments where the interest rate was at a certain, to make it work, they needed, say, an interest rate at 5%. And then when the Feds moved it up to 7-8%, the numbers completely washed. And as a result, you might see some very interesting buys on some large properties that the banks are just going to have to take by law. They do it.
This is good. And thank you for that, Mr. Roberts. I know a lot of people get into the real estate space, and again, you played at all of these different levels, and I just wanted to get your perspective because clearly everybody's not doing hotels, right? Going out buying hotels, but Mr. Roberts and we didn't even talk about some of your resort type of work that you've done in the past. So I mean, we'll get back to that at another time, but just that broad range, I think that's helpful for those of us who are, thinking about the different levels that we're playing at with real estate. So I'm glad that was helpful, Galinda. Marco, your question.
Good evening. Good evening. Greetings and salutations. Thank you for having this.
Hey, Marco.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you good. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having this, and thank you more for inviting me. And Dr. Roberts, thank you for sharing your time with us. So my question, I recently moved to Atlanta about a little over a year ago. I too am a member of New Birth, and I've been trying to get involved with the ministry for since I got here. Basically, I've sent emails on emails and emails, numerous phone calls and left voicemails. Contacted with Mrs. Linda Mack Smith. I even told Pastor Bryant at least 4 times in person, and I don't know. I'm not getting any leeway. You did mention something about people teaching at the church, and that just really resonated with me. I wasn't even trying to get in contact with the church for any paid anything. It's when they be involved in ministry, but I haven't really gotten any headway. So I wanted to find out from you. Who do I
I'll
need to
tell you
talk
right
to?
now. Here's what you do. Maurice Wardell is the COO at the church. Maurice Wardell.
Maurice Wardell.
He'll take your call. Tell him that I said to call because you're looking to engage in some of the volunteers that help in some of the activities at the church.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Maurice Wardell.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Yes,
That's it.
sir.
Now that's,
We
That's-
appreciate you doing that too, by the way. That's good.
any other questions, Marco? That was it?
Yeah, that was it. Thank
And
you.
that's a plug there, man. Just, say that Dr. Roberts said, call you out.
I was just getting ready to say, we are doing networking
Yeah.
on steroids.
That's a power network to get the name, say Dr. Roberts told me to hit you up. That's cool. I don't even know what to say behind that one. That was pretty powerful. Thank you for that, Dr. Roberts.
Sure.
My heart is
Lynette,
over here beating hard,
What'd you
Brother
say,
Bedford, on that
Lynette?
one.
Oh, Linda, what'd you say?
I said my heart is over here beating hard on that one,
Yeah,
really.
that was pretty good. Lynette, your question?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Roberts and Brother Bedford, for having us on this wonderful call today. So I have two questions. One, it was great to meet you in person, Dr. Roberts, in last 2 years in PNC in Texas. So it's good to see you in person. One thing I want to say or ask, you mentioned something about hemp for people who have come to you with land in various areas, including Alabama. I have about 160 plus of acres in Alabama that we need to do something with, as opposed to just the things we've been doing. So I wanted to find out more about that, and then potentially if there's a way to bridge the gap when it comes to, the ideas you mentioned, and then also if there's a way that we can have the land to be able to do produce. And we are in Marion Junction, Alabama, which is very close to Selma, Alabama. That's the first question.
Okay. I've been to Selma, so I know the area. I would suggest you do a little research in terms of the law, because hemp is close to marijuana, and so you want to make sure that if you plant it and grow it, that it's acceptable in the county, that you can grow it, because a lot of times they'll get confused because it looks so similar, but it's not the same. You don't smoke it. You can only process the bark from it, what we call the bask, which is the stem. But the entire plant can be used for various products, and it has for years. But I would suggest you check with the county and see if it's acceptable for you to do that. And then I think there's an association that you can look up and research. Most of these plants and these businesses have developed, white folks have gone out and developed associations, and they get paid through membership. But just do a little research in that and see what you find out.
Go ahead, Lynette. What's your second question? You're on mute. I think I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, the second question was, I want to find out a little bit more about cybersecurity awareness and training. I think I mentioned that to you before. I have a company here that I run in Atlanta, Georgia area, and I spoke with you about that on some suggestions on how to differentiate my company versus others, and decided to niche down to the financial sector because of the compliance and cybersecurity being number two industry that's hacked. Just want to ask you about that. And then I would like to speak also to the young lady who talked earlier to see if there's a way that we could collaborate together to help with her areas of trying to train as well on cybersecurity. So just wanted to find out what would you suggest on that?
Your business is the tax business, say?
cybersecurity, IT cybersecurity company, and we do managed IT. So managed IT outsource department, if you will.
Okay, and what is your question?
So we focus on making sure that we're niching down to the financial sector. And so wanted to figure out a way, since it's very saturated here in Atlanta, what ways or ideas do you have for us to niche down to a point where we can help more people and help more companies be
Yeah.
safe?
You know, there's a new mayor in Stonecrest, Georgia, and she's looking to really build that city. That's a new city. It's only 3 or 4 or 5 years old at the most. You might want to check with like an emerging city, something like that. It's Black. It's all, you know, the council's Black, and you might be able to say, listen, we can probably do some things that help, you know, protect your database in your new city hall area, and kind of get into getting to know those people politically, because they're green and they need some help.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, for a second, Mike, I thought you was getting ready to say, you know, call the mayor and tell him that I said call.
You can do that too.
Tell him Dr. Roberts said that I said call. I'm gonna say this is good. Let's talk about power moves. That would be
I know. Yeah. Nice lady.
yeah. Was that helpful, Lynette? One thing I want to say
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
and I know we're getting ready to shut down, and I want you to close us out, Mr. Roberts, and forgive me, I said Mike earlier, but I, again, want to be respectful. Something that you're saying, I just kind of want you to speak to this. And I heard Magic Johnson say this once. Magic Johnson talked about people coming to him about doing deals, and then they get mad at him, you know, if he can't do the deal. And it's not that he doesn't want to, he just said that he's grown to a level to where those it's just too small, right? There's just some things that he can't do because it's too small. I've heard you kind of advise a couple of times tonight in stretching us that there are places where we need to look to do deals that are probably wide open, that's completely different from the direct to consumer type of model that we're used to following. Just as you told Lynette, go talk to the city, a whole city that probably needs this service, and you would probably leapfrog over all of the other people who are fighting over trying to get different companies to do these cyber deals with. So can you just speak to probably the importance of, and we mentioned it to Cassandra, about going to the companies to get a sponsor for her business real quick. And you've done this very well in your career. How should we think about going, let's say, a step above, or maybe 2, 3 steps above, to target a customer or a client that is probably not a normal client for our services, the way that you just kind of advised her to go to a whole city? I never thought about saying, Lynette, you probably need to go to a new city and offer to help them with their cybersecurity. And they probably would say, yeah, we need that.
Mm-hmm.
What's
Exactly.
that process? What is the process behind that, Mr. Roberts?
Well, the process is simple. You know, we just have to think, you know, beyond what appears to be our horizon and reach out beyond our reach. I think Camus said that, you know, you have to take the leap of faith and go after things that you're not necessarily comfortable with, that you're not accustomed to. Mm-hmm. And you would be amazed at some of the results that come from it, because there aren't a lot of people with the courage and confidence and bravado to go after that, which is our definition of an actionaire, mm-hmm. and one who takes their dreams, their aspirations, their vision, and their passion, and they pursue them with courage and confidence and bravado. So it's really this state of mind, along with your skill set, that can get you beyond, you know, what you would normally end up with, which can be heartbreaking. But as I've said, there's no such thing as failure. All you're going to do is keep learning from the mistakes or the challenges, because everything is just, sometimes it's just an outcome that you would have preferred a different outcome, but you learn from it. You know, I always joke, I talk to the high school kids, and I'll say, okay, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And of course, they say loser, right? I said, well, from now on, that stands for lesson, because that's what you are constantly receiving, are new lessons on a moment by moment basis. So I just want to, I will conclude now with a couple of thoughts. If we are to make a change, and as I said earlier, change is inevitable. Now, either you control the change or it will control you. So we have to know our history. We have to realize that our DNA as Black people is the strongest DNA of any other human on the face of the earth, because we've had it longer than anybody else, because we're the first people. And as a result of that, none of us don't have a link back to our origin. There's no such thing as spontaneous generation. We can't sit here and suddenly a human pops up next to us. You know, you may think that, you know, you're like your parents or your grandparents, but that DNA is so rich inside of us. It's like Michael Jordan. You know, his parents were not very tall. They certainly didn't wear athletic, but he became, you know, one of the greatest basketball players, if not the greatest of all times. Why? Because he was in touch with his instinct, you see? And that's the internal strengths that we have that's God-given. You have instincts within your DNA, within your cellular memory. That's why a little girl can jump at the age of 4, jump on a piano and play Mahler or Beethoven. You know, there is something that's within us. Now, you know, we excel in everything we do as Black people. And if we can get past the miseducation that's plagued us for so many years, and begin to look more positively and treat ourselves as being superior people, then we can achieve all the goals that we set. Let me just say in conclusion, this is simple and kind of cute. You know, there's the Good Old Boy Network, right? And the Good Old Boy Network is out there, and you notice there's no girls in the Good Old Boy Network, right?
Right.
But I want to tell the 100+ that have joined us tonight that it's time for the Good Old Boy Network to step aside, because right now, with this group of brilliant Black people, that the takeover is going to take place, because the Homeboy and Homegirl Network is coming, and coming strong, and we're going to kick some butt, and we're going to change the world. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for allowing me to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Again, we'll make sure that all of the links for Dr. Roberts' books will be included with this, and any questions that you've all asked, I'll make sure that I copy them, and we'll try to get them back to you, because we couldn't acknowledge all of them tonight. But thank you all for being with us. We're going to be back next month, so I'll let you kind of, you know, think about who we might have next month. But we definitely want to start talking about some AI next month, so we'll be doing that. But thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to be with us. Rest well. And a few people asked me, is there going to be a recording? Yes. Make sure you go to brotherbedford.com, sign up for the newsletter, so that I can make sure that I can send you all of these notices, so you don't have to be guessing or wondering when we're going to be on. I can just send you an email and let you know when we're on. That's brotherbedford.com. Again, make sure you click that link to watch the profile of Mr. Roberts and his brother on CNN. You're going to thoroughly enjoy that. And of course, make sure you pick up all of Dr. Roberts' books, and we'll see you all soon. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. Take care. Thank you
Are we
again, Mr.
working on
Roberts.
volume 3 of the thriller?
Yeah, actually, I've been thinking about it. I've got some notes that maybe I was get around to writing some stuff up. We'll see.
Okay.
You'll be
Looking
sitting-
forward to it.
you'll
Look
be-
at you don't, Linda she done broke some news. Actionaire 3 is coming.
That's right. There you go. Right.
We want another novel.
Oh, you got, KP got her novel there.
Yeah, I like how you made your family royalty.
Thank you.
We all got it in us. He told us. You got to believe it.
Enjoy your evening, everybody. Thanks, Mike. Love you, man. Appreciate you so much.
Welcome. Take care.
Take care, everybody.